Let me know what slide you want to be on.
Yeah. I think,
Okay, we're recording.
all right, let's get going then. My name is James Pepper. I'm the chair of the Cannabis Control Board here in Vermont. It's 5 o'clock on May 25th, 2023. And this is not a board meeting. This is our after hours networking event. We know this is a very complicated industry. We know that it's further complicated by just the federal status of cannabis and the kind of tangled web of regulations that creates. And so we hold these events to hopefully shed some light on, areas that we find particularly confusing and answer questions and, hopefully, um, you know, introduce licensees and anyone who's attending to one another as well. I think one of the great parts about the Vermont cannabis community is it really is a community and people share their thoughts and share their kind of best practices with one another. And, you all are really the experts. We're just trying to keep up with you. So I think, Nelly, the chat is open if I'm right. People should feel free to kind of weigh in with their thoughts, weigh in with questions. We'll try our best to kind of pause and answer questions along the way. The topic tonight is our emergency hemp rule. I know it, may have felt like it came out of the blue for certain people, particularly people that don't have the time or ability to just pay attention to everything that's going on with the cannabis board. But there was a pressing need for it. And I think I'll just kind of say a few words before we go through a presentation that our Director of Compliance, Carrie Jaguar, who's sitting right next to me, put together for tonight. Again, feel free to drop questions in the chat, raise your virtual hand. We'll try and kind of move through the presentation, but we can always pause to answer questions. So just a few opening remarks. The CCB at its core is a consumer protection agency. We were created with the express purpose of providing cannabis consumers an alternative to the illicit market, an alternative that includes minimum standards with respect to adulterants, to contaminants, to labeling, to consistency and uniformity, and to product safety. The legislature's goal was not to promote consumption. It was not to promote economic activity. I think that's pretty clear when you look at the advertising restrictions and some of the other restrictions and tax rates, et cetera. It was really to make sure that adult consumers could make an informed choice about what they're putting in their bodies. I recognize that some of the laws and regulations that we've created are one size fits all. They don't account for the individual way that certain people experience cannabis. Just think about all of the various THC caps and prohibited products. I also recognize that our mission as a consumer protection agency at times creates a financial hardship on the businesses that we've been asked to regulate. We are trying to find a balance, both on the high THC adult use side, but also on the hemp-derived product side. I mentioned at the board meeting on Monday that my approach as a regulator is to articulate the principles that are motivating us, and then hear from impacted stakeholders, the growers, the producers, the retailers, the consumers, the public health experts, and find a way to craft a regulatory framework that achieves our purposes and meets your needs. I think, in hearing some of the concerns around our hemp rule, one of the most salient ones to me was this issue of lack of opportunity to comment. I'm particularly sensitive to that, just given the nature of our work and the complexity of this industry. I would just push back a little bit. From the very moment I was seated, I was invited to the legislature, a week later, and hemp-derived products was a topic of conversation. The legislature passed a bill that asked us to write a report about what we should do with hemp-derived products. We wrote that report. The following year, there was more testimony on this issue. They asked us to write another report, and then they gave us authority to regulate hemp-derived products. We wrote that report in the open. It laid out the regulatory framework that's the basis of our emergency rule. We then issued a advisory on hemp-derived products in November of 2022 that is largely consistent. In fact, it was more restrictive than what's in our emergency rule. If many of our hemp producers came to the board and worked out a path to voluntarily come into compliance when we released that advisory. However, a number of hemp producers and retailers, hemp-derived product producers and retailers, I should say, said, we'll come into compliance when this advisory has the force of law. So unfortunately, that put us in a position of having to act through the emergency provisions of the Administrative Procedures Act. It's not a position we like to be in. But we have real concerns about synthetic and intoxicating products that aren't tested or labeled consistently. They're not in child-resistant packaging. They're available to sale to minors. They have and almost certainly will continue to drive accidental exposures and are potentially harmful. I think that we recognize here that this emergency rule puts Vermont producers and retailers at an economic disadvantage compared to some other states. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the concerns that the board has with hemp-derived products. And then we're going to talk pretty much in detail about what our rule covers and importantly, what it does not cover, looking at specific examples of products that exist in the state and are coming into the state from foreign jurisdictions. And then, our plan over the coming weeks, particularly in response to some of the comments we've been receiving, is to reach out to hemp producers and retailers and growers. I think the landscape of hemp-derived products is going to change dramatically this year with the passage of the Farm Bill federally. And I think that Vermont has a real opportunity to get ahead of that and find a regulatory pathway that will kind of accommodate what's going on federally. If you'd like the CCB to reach out to you, if you're a hemp producer or hemp retailer, please contact Nellie Marvel at ccb.info@vermont.gov. Please put something along the lines of hemp or hemp engagement in the subject line. And we'll do our best to reach out to you and talk to you about your concerns and how the board can actually be there to support you. We're also going to be doing a series of engagement events across the state on hemp and hemp-derived products. We're going to be nailing down these dates in the coming days. We're just looking for locations right now, but our plan is to do 4 meetings kind of in the 4 corners of the state, essentially, give or take. And, we plan on doing those the last couple of weeks in June. And of course, we'll send out notices once those are kind of set. I think now would be a good time to start with the PowerPoint. The beginning slides really lay out some of the concerns that we have, the consumer safety concerns around hemp-derived products. So, Vermont created, the legislature debated cannabis legalization over the course of a decade, probably, maybe longer. And, it touched at least 11 different committees, probably had input from every legislative committee. And, they spent thousands of hours discussing this and then creating hundreds and hundreds of pages of regulations around it. And these are some of the things that they came up with. A single serving of an edible is capped at 5 milligrams per THC. The amount of THC that can be in a single package is 50 milligrams. Hopefully that increases to 100 soon, but currently it's 50. THC flower can't be more than 30%, or flower can't have more than 30% THC. And then there's this single transaction cap of 1 ounce. This conversation around hemp-derived products or, hemp derivatives could really just throw that whole system that was created and debated and negotiated over many, many years into a tailspin. And this is just some examples. This is from a report that Oregon listed, just explaining how if you extrapolate the 0.3% on dry weight basis to very typical products, they almost immediately start exceeding these limits. So if we solely based our definition of intoxicating products based on this 0.3%, it would be undermining the adult use market and undermining the directive from the legislature immediately. You can go to the next slide. I've got a couple of studies and statements in the coming slides. This is a statement that the director of the FDA wrote when the hemp bill, the farm bill, was signed, saying we have authority over these products, and by the way, it's unlawful to introduce any CBD or THC into interstate commerce, add it to food. I think that a lot of people think that because hemp was removed as a Schedule I controlled substance, that regulations just don't apply to it, but that's just not the case. And this is from 2018, on the eve of the signing of the bill. This is the FDA's position on hemp-derived products. This is a recent study. It's from less than a year ago. Dr. Robert Strongian is a professor out of Portland State University. He's, in my mind, the leading expert on cannabinoid inhalation studies. And, he looked at concentrated Delta-8 vaping and found that when it is vaporized, heated up and vaporized, it creates the exact same poisonous ketene gas that vitamin E acetate creates when it is aerosolized and vaporized. And of course, vitamin E acetate and the ketene gas was the kind of primary culprit behind the Uvalde crisis. So this is just kind of speaking to some of the safety concerns we have, particularly around synthetic cannabinoids. This is a study that was done, and it just, the NIH, these kind of the people that did this study just, picked random cannabinoid products off the shelves, purchased them on the internet and tested them. And they found just dramatic inconsistency about what was on the label, what was being represented. And, if you think about our mission as trying to give consumers the choice and the ability to make an informed choice, this lack of consistency around labeling and testing is a problem for us. Earlier this year, the FDA wrote a letter essentially throwing up their hands saying, we're not, we have seen, both human and animal studies that suggest that CBD in large quantities, and I should really underscore very, very large quantities, can have negative health impacts. And therefore, just relying on the kind of dietary supplement provisions are not going to be sufficient, and they need a new regulatory framework just given the popularity of these products. So this is one, I mean, we constantly hear that full spectrum products are healthier for you, that CBD is antagonistic to Delta-9 THC. Well, this is a study that came out earlier this year that suggests that high levels of CBD can actually enhance the impairing effects of Delta-9 THC. And so I include this just to show that the science is evolving continuously. We're trying to stay ahead of it, but really we felt a need to act because these are products, once again, that are available in stores. People are not age gating them. They're not checking IDs, and there's impacts that consumers are probably not aware of. So the rule that we passed does have some specific exemptions in it. I think really what it is the reason for this slide is that we recognize that there are therapeutic impacts of hemp-derived products. Like, I don't think that anyone at the control board doesn't believe that, and I also want to be sure that it's clear that we are not prohibitionists. We know that the illicit market and the legacy, well, just the illicit market, the unregulated market thrives when regulators and legislators prohibit products. And so I think we made sure to create exceptions to what the emergency rule does. Again, I think it's really helpful when people are thinking about making comments to the board or giving us advice about how to change our rule, that they just know very clearly what the board's mission is and what are the kind of guiding principles that we have. And it's really just to make sure that unsafe products with or products that we just don't know anything about their safety are not on the market, that we're limiting intoxicating products to adults and the medical markets, that we recognize that, we want local Vermont businesses to succeed. We want a regulated market, and that can only happen if Vermont's local hemp businesses can survive. And we really need, fundamentally to give consumers the ability to make informed decisions and have consistent testing, labeling, packaging protocols for hemp-derived products. So this is a slide that we submitted to the legislature. We, I think, created an 82-page report that laid out the kind of the pathway that we were going to follow for regulating hemp-derived products. And I think this is just another indication of where we wanted to head with our regulations. And it's pretty straightforward. We want products we want manufacturers that are kind of dealing in THC to be licensed. We want testing standards. We want manufacturing standards. We want these products registered so we can verify that people are meeting those packaging, labeling, and testing requirements. And there's an open question potentially. I mean, it's for the tax department to decide, but about which taxes apply to intoxicating THC products. So Carrie, I think what's helpful now is for you to just walk through the verbiage that's in the emergency rule, because I know it can be confusing, and it's already led to some some misinterpretation, I would characterize it as, and then look at some of the products that it would apply to and wouldn't apply to.
Yep, very good. So I figured this is the actual rule. It's actually 3 rules. I figured we'll walk through that, then maybe answer some questions, and then rip through the rest of the slides that have examples of either Vermont produced CBD products or Vermont produced products that are hemp derived that do fall into what we would consider intoxicating or products that belong in the regulated market. So I'll just read the rule for folks who haven't seen it. Emergency Rule 1, prohibition. So it's a prohibition on the production, manufacture, marketing, transfer, and sale of hemp-derived intoxicating cannabinoids and synthetic cannabinoids are also hereby prohibited, except as outlined below in Rule 3. This first section really captures the Delta 8, Delta 10, Delta O, all the new sort of novel hemp-derived cannabinoids that are showing up in gas stations and vape cartridges. So the prohibited cannabinoids include all isomers, variants, analogs, and mimetics of Delta 9 THC, including Delta 8, Delta 10, created by chemical manipulation of any part or derivative of the cannabis plant L sativa, which sort of is how it's defined in the 2018 Farm Bill, regardless of the Delta 9 content. So 0.3 or not, if you're making one of these novel cannabinoids, they're currently prohibited for sale in the state, for sale or manufacture. And then, or Delta 9 that has been chemically or mechanically concentrated or otherwise derived from hemp and then sprayed, infused, or otherwise artificially introduced into any product. So if you are making your CBD isolate from your extract and saving the pure THC If you're going to add that to a product, it needs to be in the adult use market. Emergency Rule 2 contains presumptions, and I do believe that this is where most of the confusion lies. We heard some questions after the last board meeting that I hope will be addressed after we get through this slide deck. Presumptions are a consumable product that is not cannabis or a cannabis product is presumptively prohibited regardless of the delta-9 concentration of any plant from which the product is sourced if the product is offered to the consumers. So even if your delta-9 came from hemp or some other way from a lab, it's prohibited to add to a product. But presumption A here is it contains a total THC in a concentration exceeding 0.3. So that just captures the federal definition that folks have been following for a long time. B of the rule says if it contains more than 1.5 milligrams of THC per serving, where a serving is the amount reasonably ingested by a consumer in a single instance. And most of the hemp-derived products that we do see, CBD or otherwise, do have a serving size on them because they're labeled as either nutraceutical or nutritional supplement with a serving size on it. And we'll get into some of that in a few of the later slides. Or the total package contains more than 10 milligrams of THC, unless the ratio of CBD to THC is less than 21. And then the last provision there, or if the product's marketed or targetedly marketed as something that is intoxicating. And the exemptions are any product that's registered registered in Vermont's adult use market, or sold as a drug, or produced and sold in the Vermont medical dispensary market. The next slide, we start getting into examples and local examples at that. And I wanted to pause for a minute and maybe we'll answer a question or two before we get to that. Nellie, do we have any questions that have popped up in the chat that sort of were pertinent to the beginning of the presentation?
We do have a couple of questions in the chat. We've got Brian has said in Emergency Rule 2, subsection C, is the intent of the law to specifically have the ratio of CBD to THC at 20:1 or less, or is it the intent to have the ratio of all non-psychoactive cannabinoids to THC at 20:1?
This is specifically CBD to THC. We know that's the hardest ratio to hit. The CBG plants, they're more often 60 or higher CBG to 1. And it's a threshold. The early hemp in the state, some of the stuff that was being bred here was closer to 15 to 1. A lot of the commercial seeds available now are closer to 30 to 1. And we'll go through some of that with the COAs. This is basically a concession to say, as long as it's a full spectrum extract and you're not manipulating the amount of THC that's naturally in that extract, your product will meet the definition.
Great. We have another question from Stephanie saying, it's my understanding that we can't actually make beverages containing Delta 8 and Delta 9, and she just wants to make sure that she understands that correctly.
So we are prohibiting Delta 8, and if you can make Delta 9 beverages that are appropriate for sale in the adult use market. Some of the hemp-derived beverages from out of state come close to falling outside of what we would want in the adult use market, but others don't. And we'll go through that in the next few slides as well. Stephanie, if you've got specific questions about beverages and CBD, if they're not answered after this, reach out directly. Nellie, pop that info in email in there, and we'll get your question answered more specifically.
It's all the questions from the chat at this moment.
All right, very good. We'll go through a few slides here. As soon as we dropped the emergency rule, we did, or after that board meeting where folks were concerned, I did walk through Elmore Mountain Therapeutics products on the web just to reassure them that they didn't need to go into the adult use market. This is a 1,500 milligram CBD oil formulation. It is their strongest, so it will have the most THC in it. On the label, the suggested serving size is 15 drops. We consider using these droppers. A milliliter is about 20 drops. Looking at the COA for this and the serving size, a serving would deliver about 1 milligram of THC. So this is a product that we wouldn't be looking to have in the adult use market. And it is their highest concentration offered for sale.
Yeah, and I would just, this, in the adult use market, not in the adult use market, we don't want to regulate CBD products that fall outside of the scope of the emergency rule. So I think this, what you're saying is this product falls outside of the scope of the emergency rule. We would have no desire to push this to sales only in adult use retail establishments. This can continue to be sold online or in a storefront, because this falls outside of the scope of what we did in our emergency rule.
In the largest sort of CBD market in Vermont is looking at the COA for this product. It's a nearly 30-to-1 ratio. It's closer to a 32-to-1 ratio. The serving size is 20 milligrams, but just using that 30-to-1 ratio, a serving size of 45 milligrams of CBD would still have this falling outside of the scope of what we would consider a product that falls into the adult use market. So tinctures and capsules that keep that full spectrum. I did find a few, we'll get there. I did find a few that would have to modify their serving size or some other way, and we'll get there. These products right here, the COAs are available, and what verified them. They're all marketed as nutritional supplements. The top is 0.5 milligrams of THC. The middle one is 1 milligram. The bottom is 0.2. This is a suite of products that all fall outside of needing to be registered or for sale in the adult use market. The next product is basically a CBD with THC added. It's a 10-to-1 product with 2 milligrams. This one, they either have to reformulate or change the serving size to keep this outside of the scope of the adult use market. This currently would fall
So based on the ratio.
Yep,
This would need to be registered with the board. People producing it would need to get a manufacturing license. And it could only be sold in an adult recreational retail store.
thanks. I was distracted by the comments coming in.
Yeah.
This is one we've also seen in Vermont. It's a seltzer, CBD THC seltzer. It's got 5 milligrams of THC with 10 milligrams of CBD per can. We've got 5 milligram seltzers in the adult use market, and we required child resistance and age gating. So this is like very similar to a product that's offered in the adult use market. Looking at the serving size, it's 1.7 milligrams of THC per serving. The ratio is 2 to 1. This is one that we consider falling in the adult use market, and it really is marketed as something with THC in it. So that's that provision in Rule 2 that sort of lines how it's being marketed. This one was an interesting one to review the COA on. A serving equals almost a gram, and it's got 0.3 milligrams of delta 9 or THCA basically, so 0.27 milligrams of THC. And if we were to use the total theoretical, including THCA, which I don't necessarily think is the appropriate way to go because THCA is not intoxicating. But even if you were to include the THCA, it's at 0.72 per serving and still outside of the scope of the emergency rule and would not belong in an adult use market. These two particular products were products that were made and marketed in Vermont until very recently, until basically the emergency rule was published. They were sold in age-gated refrigerators at local co-ops, and it's 75 milligrams of CBD with 2 milligrams of THC, and these products have migrated into the adult use market. This is the strongest product that Aeromed makes as well. Looking at the serving size and the milligrams per gram, the suggested serving size on the website was 5 to 10 drops. Using the high end of that, 10 drops would deliver 1.46. So she's still under that 1.5 cutoff with this product. This is fine to remain in the CBD store right next to the adult use store. These are very close, even though the label there says implies that it's got 2 milligrams of THC in it. These are available online, hemp gummies. I can't move my cursor. The COA puts the amount of THC at 1.49 per serving. So this really does fall outside, but it's very, very close to being a product that we would want to see in the adult use market in terms of serving size. But the CBD to THC ratio is 35 to 1. So this is clearly outside of what we wanted to see in the adult use market. Now, these are products, right, this is a Delta 9, hemp-derived Delta 9, 1-to-1, well, 10 milligrams of THC and 10 milligrams of CBD. This is something that we would clearly want to see in the adult use market, not only based on marketing, but they really are promoting the THC in this product. These are Delta 8 gummies. They have 10 milligrams of CBD and 10 milligrams of Delta 8 THC. This is 1-to-1. The ratio isn't there. The threshold for THC isn't there, and Delta 8 is not something that we're ready to approve. So this is something that we would want to see in the adult use market, and also something that we're not ready to register in that market. So this poor product is basically condemned. No reformulating here unless they wanted to take out the Delta 8. Another CBD product, 1,200 milligrams of CBD per bottle. The dosage here is 1 milliliter with 10 milligrams of CBD. The strain is a 30-to-1 strain. The COA is 0.6 milligrams per dose, outside of the scope of what we would want to see in the adult use market. This is one of the higher ones from Lily Hill, another Johnson-based Vermont CBD company, who sort of bred their own hemp variety. It's a 15-to-1 strain, but in the serving size here, delivers about sorry, can't see the COA from where I'm sitting. It's too small. But it's a 3.91 milligrams of THC per gram. And we're equating a gram with a milliliter in this case. So 20 drops of this would deliver about 4 milligrams of THC. And the only way to sort of make that an acceptable product outside of the adult use market would be to have the serving size be 5 drops. The ratio is not there and the limit's not there, but there wasn't a suggested serving size other than start low and go slow. So if this were to have a 5 drop serving size, it would be something we would consider, in the realm of outside of the adult use, but not yet. But they're soft gels here, 0.77 milligrams of THC per gel per serving with 28 or 23 or 28 total milligrams of CBD per serving. So these are fine. These fall outside. Continue to sell them, market them in the state anywhere. They don't need to be in an adult use market. These guys here, the lab is sketchy as far as I'm concerned. They put their limit of quantitation at 0.3%. The chromatogram clearly shows THC, but it's not quantified. All that said, the CBD to THC ratio, it just falls outside the use of the adult market, even though they didn't quantify above 0.3%. Sorry if that was confusing. I'm more upset with the lab than the CBD producers. These are all topical products, salves, soaps, deodorants. There's no serving size, there's no dosage. We're not looking at those. It's the ones you're ingesting. One of the more, we did see a bunch of CBD honeys very early on. The ratio here is almost 30-to-1, 28.9-to-1. There's not a specific serving size, but the concentration for THC in milligrams per gram was
0.053.
Thank you. 0.053. Younger eyes. And so you could have, even if the serving size was up to a tablespoon, this would still fall outside of the adult use market. And another prominent CBD company in Vermont, the ratio of CBD to THC is greater than 30-1. I did not see a serving size, but I'm thinking it's probably somewhere close to a milliliter, which still puts it at 1. All right, I think that's the last one. Yes, that is. So if I'm going to stop sharing, and if folks have questions, now would be the time.
All right, we have a question from Sam. He says, with regard to new product development, should CBD producers aim for compliance with the 1.5 milligram THC serving limit in the emergency rule, or the 1 milligram THC limit in proposed rule 2?
The first, the 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
I think, our advisory that we put out in November originally said 1 milligram would be intoxicating. And then we, through just hearing from folks, decided, and listening to what Colorado is doing and what Oregon did and what other states are contemplating, we decided 1.5 was the appropriate level. So I think we're just going to square that up when we kind of take all of our public comments in, and but the emergency rule is the kind of the one that you should be shooting for.
And I would sort of add, if I was developing a new CBD product right now, I would wait and see. The FDA has basically said these aren't and should not be labeled as nutritional supplements or dietary supplements. You should wait and see what FDA pressures Congress to do. And as they deliver, you don't want to spend your time and money on developing a new product, producing labels, and then have FDA say these belong in this market and to be labeled in this manner with this warning. So if I were a CBD producer, I would sort of not develop any new products until we did hear something from FDA. And they've been sort of hitting the hemp headline every month or every other month recently.
Scott, do you have a question for us?
First of all, thank you for showing specific products. That's very helpful. I guess I have some questions around other specific products, and I'm not sure what to do or what the right answer is. For some examples, first of all, I own Vermont Epicurean.
Yep.
I've been selling, Vermont hemp products for 5+ years. And I carry some 3,000 milligram tinctures from Vermont producers, some 6,000 milligram tinctures. I have gummies that are 40 milligrams, etc. I don't know what to do now. How would I know if these pass the sniff test?
Scott, you can, if you can find my email, send it to me. If not, Pat, you have Chipper's email. Send it to Chipper and have him forward it to me, and I'll do the same thing I did with these products for yours. I apologize for not grabbing any off your site. I had you in mind.
No problem. This is helpful, but it's kind of like, well, now what do I do about all these other ones? Or in the future, if someone presents me with a product that I want to bring in, is there going to be some kind of certification or something to say this is passed or not?
Yeah, no, there isn't. The hemp rule is out there. We're not registering hemp products. It would be on a complaint basis, or if your field agent shows up and we're looking at the products in your store, it would be, hey, Scott, this one really should be an adult use product.
Okay. So if I hear you correctly,
there's no real certification. There's no real certification process. It's just, we're asking folks to comply with the rule, and there will be sort of in live inspections. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but a lot of the Delta 8 products that were in gas stations are no longer there. There was a media push that happened, and we're not seeing as many, but when folks do submit a complaint through the web form or reaching out to a field agent, we stop by the place if they're marketing these Delta 8 products. We haven't had any calls about CBD products, and we were trying to be as eloquent as we could in drawing the line. It needed to be drawn somewhere. We thought we did a pretty good job, but we're gonna also hear from the hemp community as to whether we did or not.
Well, just for the record, I have no interest in any of those Delta products, never have. I wouldn't sell them even if they were legal. It's not what I believe in. But I do like to support the Vermont hemp farmers and would like to continue to do so with the products I've been selling, and hopefully it will work out. Thank you.
Yep, Scott, we really appreciate that. Hemp was, hemp was booming here, and I like the companies that are left, and hope that hopefully they can thrive.
Thanks.
We have Sam up next.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. My name's Sam. I'm one of the owners of Sunset Lake CBD, and yeah, thank you for taking the time to do this meeting. I think I'd be very much interested in scheduling a time, maybe one-on-one, Carrie, to just kind of go through our product lineup.
Yep.
And one question I had was, well, the first one was with the emergency rule. And then the second one was with kind of figuring out packaging standards with CBD products regarding labeling. The FDA just had a call earlier today where they had kind of talked about what that proposed framework would be. And one of them was with regards to, like a disclaimer on if you're pregnant consuming CBD products, and if not intended use for children, will the board be looking at doing any packaging stuff? Because I think there's a lot of, we spend a ton of money on doing heavy metal testing, pesticide testing, kind of implementing those safety concerns that they're not really potency related, but I still think they're important for having safe products. And just kind of wanted to see what the board's thoughts were on that. Thank you.
Yeah. So the hemp rule that was developed at Ag, I think, was used as a model for the adult use market. The place where they largely differ is in the yeast and mold and mycotoxin versus human pathogen. And I see the hemp rule mimicking the adult use rule in terms of moving away from yeast and mold and towards the human pathogen testing as far as that goes. And we are also waiting to see what Congress and FDA say before we develop labeling guidance, because like I said earlier, I'd hate to see somebody develop a product that was immediately out of compliance based on what FDA says. So we're in the same boat you are in terms of waiting for the federal government to let us know what they want.
But when it comes to hemp-derived products that are moving through the adult use side that qualify as intoxicating, I mean, my feeling about the rule is that the adult use labeling and packaging rules apply to those products. I think, Sam, your question was really about the CBD products that fall outside of the scope of the emergency rule, like the 10 or so that Carrie described that, meet that 20-to-1 ratio or the 1.5 milligrams per serving and are not marketed as, intoxicating or, you know, I think that is just defaults to FDA.
Sorry if I also skipped that part of the question as well. So the ones that the hemp derived intoxicating products that do fall into the adult use market would be required to meet the packaging requirements of the adult use market. And you'll see some of the sort of VT terps products that are in the adult use market. They're processed they're processed from hemp for the adult use market and meet our packaging requirements in terms of no plastic. But in terms of the CBD products, I don't see us moving in a direction that would require the same packaging standards for those products that fall outside of the adult use market.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, we kind of, we're, I mean, our concern is, you know, giving consumers accurate information when it comes to potentially intoxicating products, not, you know, CBD products that don't meet that definition. And I know that we created that definition. We drew those lines. They're not out of touch with, you know, other states and other jurisdictions, but you know, that's the line that we drew. And you know, I think things that don't fall within the scope of an emergency rule is, you know, can kind of continue in the path that they're currently on.
Perfect. Thank you. That's very helpful.
We have a question in the chat from Katrina. With regard to THCP, THCO, HHC products, and THC terpene products, are they classified as prohibited products? Or are you just looking at the ratio to THC?
They currently fall in the category of Section 1, Emergency Rule 1, where we specifically call out Delta 8 and Delta 10, sort of the isomers, but we also mean to include the THCO and the other sort of novel cannabinoids that you mentioned. But at the end of that question, you talked about terpenes, and terpenes, we're talking specifically about cannabinoids, not terpenes.
Any other questions? We don't need to keep you if there aren't any. I know we have one person who's joined by phone. You can hit *6 to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question.
They have not unmuted, and I'm seeing no one else raising their hand currently.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. I do apologize to everyone out there that, this has been an evolution of a process, both in Vermont, but every state is grappling with this. I think the Cannabis Regulators Association, of which we are a member, wrote a letter to Congress just explaining the complexity of these issues and the kind of way that certain clever folks are making hemp-derived products that have, high amounts of THC in them. And, we really owe a duty, I think, to Vermont consumers to make sure they at least know what they're getting and what's in the products. And so that was the motivation for the rule. We've received a huge number of comments on the emergency rule. The board, I think our goal over the next, this rule is in place for 180 days. We have the ability to make changes to it. We will make changes to it if there's a good reason to, and we can help clarify. I think that's what most people just want, is clarity and consistency from the board, and that's our goal. So we will be reaching out to particularly the people that submit comments or ask for the board to reach out to them. That's our goal, is to do a listening tour and then have public listening tours around hemp-derived products, just because it is such a complicated area of the law, and we really do not like acting through emergency rule. We found ourselves in the position where we had to, and now it's time for us to really hear what people are saying, hear the kind of impacts of what we've done and how we can find a balanced approach to these products moving forward. So there's no other questions. I will call it. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for the great questions. Reach out to Carrie or your compliance officer if you need him to review specific products. We're happy to do that. And thanks for everyone's kind of thoughtfulness on this issue.